Hey, isn't she great? Didn't Laura do a great job? Listen, I really enjoyed the little prosperity meditation that you did. And the thing is, I think it works this way no matter what it is. Like you were talking about how if you concentrate on the things you need that you don't have, then
That's what you get.
you get more things that you need that you don't have, right? Well, so you and I were talking before the service started. We were talking about how and I was talking about whether you guys are different. You know, because I'm kind of used to the unity of North Kitsap people, and I'm used to the Suquamish UCC people, but I've never been here before, but now I've got my little red heart. But I've never been here before, and I think, oh, these people are going to be different, right? So I'm thinking about that, right? But how long are people usually different than you?
2 minutes.
About as long as it takes to have a little dialogue, right? We had that little dialogue before, and we found out that, well, sure, you're you and I'm me, but we're simpatico. We're on the same page. We're similar people. And what it turns out, I think, is that you'd be surprised how many people are similar to you in the whole world. And I think it means, you know, people who have different ideas about politics, let's say, or religion, or whatever. But after you have a few minutes of chat with these people, then what you find out is, well, you know, they love their family, they're happy at their home, and they have things about them that are just the same as you. Now, there are differences. You know, some people like spicy food and some people like bland food. But Sherry and I have lived together for 25 years now, and we've managed to find our way around that particular difference. And it turns out that most of the differences are kind of like that. And so one of the ways that we bridge our differences is by getting to know each other, and one of the ways we do that is by having a little dialogue. And so if you were paying good attention, you can see that I asked you, if you're willing, to share with me what ways that your imagination has worked for you to fuel your spiritual journey. And so now's the time. We don't need too many of these, but a few. And if somebody would like to share how their imagination has fueled their spiritual journey, I will run over to you with the microphone, and we will make sure that your wisdom is captured on the live stream. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I've had two major things that stand out. Both saved me major surgery. And it was just in my imagination, my intuitiveness, long before I knew what I know now, because I work with healing because of that. But I saved myself two major surgeries, and both times it was that clear, somehow holding in mind that there was something different, something more, something that the body was homeostasis and wanted to return to that. And that's exactly what happened. And each time it was something that moved so instant after so many years of problems, is that it moved, and it was nothing but what I can say is that divine intervention. And it was so powerful the first time that it allowed me to save myself the spinal surgery later because of that. And now I work with a lot of people who had those spinal surgeries and all the problems of it. So I'm very grateful for the knowing the power that is within us that does the work.
Good. Thank you. Somebody back here.
Through my different experiences in life, I
ended up searching a lot for my spirituality. And because of the difference in my experiences from, say, your experiences or your experiences, my search ended taking me through many different religions. And it came to me that what I was searching for wasn't a church or a religion, but a oneness of all of them. And I came to realize through practice that no matter what you call God, what name you use, what language you use, and what practices you serve to get there, your spiritual being is the same as everyone else's. And you're still talking about the same person or same entity.
All right.
Can
Super.
you real quickly?
Yep.
I found a husband. I imagined it and then it happened.
Love it.
You know, Sherry did that too. She wrote down a list of attributes and said, this is what I want. And
And the spicy was extra.
pardon me?
And the spicy was extra.
The spicy was extra, yeah.
In that same vein, I did 4Ts. Some of you are probably familiar with that 4Ts program, back in the old church, and I found a wife.
All right.
I've got one.
Okay.
I've been here long enough, I feel like crying.
Sure.
Yeah, right on.
But I just feel moved to share. So I've had a visualization in my imagination for several years about meeting a top-notch producer to help me take my music to the next level. And, you know, that's a pretty big stretch, right? But I also had the feeling that I wanted to manifest this without effort, without a lot of effort, without searching for this person, because there's a lot to search through and a lot that of people I would not want to work with. And a few weeks ago, while I was traveling, I met a wonderful woman, and we had a connection. The kind of connection I have with many of you. It's just that heart-based spiritual connection. She's from LA. She had sold her home. Anyway, the short story is she has a friend who's a Grammy Award-winning producer. Put me in touch, put a link, I sent a link to her, she forwarded it to him, and before I even contacted him, he had gone to my SoundCloud page, listened to my music, contacted me, and said, I love your music, I'd like to produce you.
That sounds terrific. It's interesting, actually. You know, we were talking about how things would be different, because really this is we tried the same thing last week at Unity of North Kitsap, and the things that people shared are completely different this time than they were last week. So. Or are you? I don't know. What do you think?
I'm okay with
Different or the same? Is there anyone else who just has to share?
Well, most everybody here knows that I retired in April, and I left my job. It was not the most financially wise decision, but you know, because I could have written the Daily Word for today. I mean, that just was so me. It was written about me, but even in the midst of after retiring, my husband died a month after that, and people were still telling me in the midst of the chaos of all that how much more relaxed and happy I seemed to be with having left my job. And I did it knowing that I had to step out in faith that my finances were going to be okay. Now I'm struggling with that right now, but it's getting better. I have my ups and my downs, but it has also produced a better effect, a relationship with my son. So I think just imagining the possibilities and what can be, and just working on that and asking for help from my friends in my spiritual community to help me through those rough times, that whatever's going to come, that there's something out there waiting for me, a better relationship, better good job, and other things. And that leaving that possibilities open and working on what it says, not to hold those thoughts in mind.
Carol.
Many of you may know Rabbi Ted Falcon, who's one of the Interfaith Regals.
Yes.
He has a wonderful analogy that just struck me so much, and that is of a huge mountain of truth, love, and light. And at the bottom are those various loving folks of different religions going up the mountain. And the Presbyterians go up like this, and the Congregational go this way and then up, and Unity goes straight up. And the Catholics go this way, and the Jewish people go this way. And they meet halfway up and look around and see the light in each other, even though they've come up different paths. And for me, that's one of the reasons I love the oneness and love the interfaith, because there's such light and love in each one.
Has kind of a funny thing in the middle, because the people that come up the different paths in your little analogy may believe things that are mutually exclusive. What is it? Don't believe, I've heard this saying, don't believe everything you think. But I think also you have to not believe everything that you believe. I mean to say, hold on to your beliefs, but hold on to them with kind of a light grip. Because one of our UCC forefathers liked to say, God has yet more light to break from His holy word. And what that means, I think, is that as we go along, what?
As we each open up,
As we each open up, we discover new stuff. And sometimes, many times, you find out the things that you thought were the rock solid core of your beliefs are just wrong. I mean, think of what happens in a family when one of the members of the family comes out to the rest of the family as gay, right? It could work this way. It could be the grandson comes out to his parents and his grandparents as gay, or her parents or grandparents as gay, or it could be the other way around, couldn't it? It could be like the grandma discovers, sometime in her 60s or something like that the way that who she thought she was all this time was not who she was at all. And she has to, in order to grab onto who she really is for this little bit of the life that she has left, she needs to make that change. And so she imagines that she'll be something that she hadn't thought she'd be at all. And a long time ago, I had a great professor at seminary. Her name was Glaucia Vasconcelos Wilkie. Sometimes I like to put Glaucia Vasconcelos Wilkie into my sermons just because I like being able to, it's kind of an interesting name, and she was a person from Brazil, and obviously what happened is she came to the United States and married a Wilkie, and but she's a wonderful person, and one of the things that she liked to always say, is to treat each other with wide margins of grace. Imagine if we treated each other with wide margins of grace, which means to say that yeah, here's a person who I perceive as different. Here's a person who doesn't like spicy food. But there could be, there could be other aspects of her. There could be things that I could get to know about her. There could be ways that I could live into being with her that could produce 25 or 40 or 50 or a whole lifetime of wonderful memories, wonderful golden times. And that can happen. Your life can change overnight, instantly, just by changing what you think. Just by changing what you believe. And really, you guys are familiar with the three amigos, I'm sure. I saw everybody nod their heads. But one of the things that Glaucia said to us one time was she was reading this wonderful passage, and then we all found out that it was from the Quran. All of us liberal Christians going to this liberal Christian seminary, and here, we know that those Muslims they're hidebound and but she read this passage and it resonated in all of our hearts. Actually, maybe that's the key. Do you think that's the key? Is that why you guys pass out these little things? Is that it? The key is that, huh?
Feeling, not thinking.
Feeling, not thinking. Maybe the key is paying attention to your heart and not paying attention to necessarily what you think. But also, isn't it? There's one more step, isn't there? Because here's the thing. I'm all messed up, by the way. This is completely different than what I said last week. I don't know if you... Because I haven't even talked about creation or anything like that. But here's one of the things. I'm going to talk about it now. In the beginning of the Bible, it talks about how human beings, the human spiritual story starts when God says, let us create them, man and woman, let us create them in our image. And so all this time we've believed that we, special among all the other created things, are created in the image of God. I happen to believe that that's probably true, but I also think that it's limited. This is sort of an example of what I was talking about. Sure, I believe that you were created in the image of God. I also believe that the frogs and trees and mountains and rivers and sun and all the planets and the subatomic particles were created in the image of God too. Because later on in the Bible, it talks about the Logos of God. At the beginning of the Gospel of John, this is the biblical John, not the Gospel according to John Lennon. Well, I really believe in the Gospel according to John Lennon, and the world will live as one. I mean, didn't it almost make you start to cry? But in the beginning of the Gospel of John, it talks about Logos, the Word. But let's set aside that translation. You know that in our Bible, where it says the word, we're translating a Greek term, and the Greek term is logos. And it seems to me like word, the way that we usually use what we mean when we say word, is quite a bit different than what they're really talking about there, logos. See, what I think it is that in the beginning was God's imagination.
Right.
God's dream. God's dream of a universe. God's dream of, and through God's imagination, God creates, and God continues to create, is what I believe, not created 13.6 billion years ago, but creates right along, and creates this amazing, unimaginable thing, which includes amazing, unimaginable people like you, and you. And the rest of us. Yes, you. Certainly you. Maybe especially you. Creates God creates all of this and continues to create. And the other part about how we're created in the image of that creator means that we're endowed with this logos as well, right? This imagination of ours, this ability of ours to dream of peace, this ability of ours to dream of health and wholeness, or to dream of wonderful relationships, or a religion where everything is seen as one, or which I thought was great because it was right out of the Gospel of John Lennon. Really, it was splendid. And so when we use our imagination that way, what we can do, if we do so with discernment, and if we don't bite down on what we think for too hard, because what we think is always going to be partial. It may be true, but it's partial, right? If you know that somebody else is different, then that's true, but it's partial. There's other things to know about. And if we don't bite down too hard on our things that we think, then we can open up our dreams. We can open up our imagination, and we can co-create with God. We can make this world the place that we and God imagine it to be through using our imaginations, like Marilyn was talking about. Let's take a deep breath. Let's let our breath come in and out of our hearts, so that all the wonderful stuff that's there, all the places that God has touched our lives, we find ourselves there in our hearts, surrounded by all that love of God, all of that peace that passes human understanding, all of those blessings that we haven't yet come into contact with, that we don't know about yet, that we haven't learned to embrace. And in that place, imagine yourself expanding into the unknown around you. Imagine yourself coming to understand what it means when we say God is love. In places and in areas and parts of your life and parts of the world that you didn't think love existed. Allow yourself in these few moments to be surprised by all of the ways that God is showering love on you, health and wholeness on you, creative avenues of prosperity and relationship on you. And you, with your imagination, are opening yourself to be able to embrace all of it and to create all of it along with God, to co-create with God along with all of that. And as you go throughout your week, imagine yourself being able to carry that with you, so that the difference between right now, while you're sitting with this easy breath in and out of your heart, and the way that your life goes when you're driving in traffic or dealing with a thorny problem, the difference between those things starts to melt. And pretty soon, you're creating a world where God is love, not only here in this special place, but in the supermarket, in the workplace, on the freeway. And in the fullness of time, after a couple more breaths, find your way back to sitting here in the unity space, ready to embrace life and imagine.